We're going to talk today about how you can reduce your risk by doing one thing, okay? And what we're going to talk about is something that most investors don't do. Most don't do this, okay? Even some of the gurus out there don't do this. But I'm telling you, if you want to mitigate your risk when you get involved in a partnership, when you buy your own apartment property, you want to reduce your risk, you do this one thing. This one thing, it'll take away 80% of the risk. 80% of it. So how would you like to take away 80% of the risk? Because when you get involved, when you're thinking about getting involved in some kind of maybe a partnership, some kind of a business venture, dealing with real estate, maybe you're going to buy your own apartment property, you always think about things working out, right? Rarely do you think about what I call SHF, when the shit hits the fan. You never really think about that. Oh yeah, I'll think a little bit about that, and am I going to risk a little bit? Okay, sure. But what if that happens? Okay, what if the property does not perform as well as you think it should? What if the units don't rent as fast as you think? What if you don't achieve the kind of rents you think you're going to get? What if there's more repairs, more expenses, more surprise capital improvements that come up that may affect how much money that property makes? And that's just 3 or 4 I just thought of off the top of my head, and they're all real. So what if that happens? Now what are you going to do? You can reduce your risk a lot by doing this one simple thing. And it has to do with one word: financing. Okay, financing. So what most people do when they get financing and they buy a property is they will borrow 75 to 80% of the value of the property from a bank, credit union, lender, doesn't matter. It's a lender of some kind. But they're usually borrowing 75 to 80%. Of course, we can talk about, owner financing and, maybe borrowing more and maybe getting in with low or no money down. We can go into that, but that's another subject for another time. Let's just consider right now we're looking at buying something conventionally. Conventional financing, okay? So that means we're typically putting 20 to 25% down, okay? And this is no matter what. This is whether you're buying 4 units or 4,000 units. That's typically what lenders are going to want. So you're going to be putting 40,000 down, or you're putting 40 million down. It's the same thing. This is going to apply no matter how many zeros are on this deal. Okay? So here's what most people do. Most people will borrow 75 to 80% because A, it gives them a higher rate of return. Because when you borrow more and put less money in, the cash flow typically give you a higher return, right? 2, it allows you to buy more property. So I can spread my down payment maybe across 3 or 4 properties versus having a big down payment where I'm just buying one property, right? That kind of makes sense, okay? And 3, you can play the appreciation game in a big way and have a huge return, right? So, for example, if we put 200,000 down and the property appreciates $100,000, I've made 50%, right, on my 200,000 just on appreciation, haven't I? Haven't I made that much? Right? I put $200,000 down and it appreciates 100 grand, I've made 50%. But what if I put down 500,000? The property is going to appreciate at the same rate no matter what my down payment is. Whether I put $200,000 down or $500,000 down, the appreciation factor is going to be the same, wouldn't you agree? So if that's the case, now my 50% return goes down to a 20% return, right? So you really can get a huge kick in rates of return by lower down payments of 20 to 25%. Higher returns on cash flow, you can buy more property, and you can play the appreciation game and even get those returns up even higher overall. So this is what most people do, and this is what most investors do, and you can see the reasons why. It makes total sense. Total sense, right? But let me tell you why it's a mistake. It's a mistake because All of this is predicated on things going well, right? Not having any issues or any problems. But when you have problems and have issues, which can come up from time to time, what never changes? That debt service. Okay? So all of a sudden, your property that was 100% occupied, you're going through some hard times, now it's 70% occupied. All right? Oh, and on top of that, now all these vacant units need money put into them, work and capital improvements. Okay? Now you've got the utility costs for those empty units. Okay? Now you've got, parking lot. Got to put a new parking lot in. Housing came by and inspect. City housing, they want you to put a new parking lot in. Oh, and by the way, they also want you to put in some new HVAC. So all of a sudden, this happens within a year or two. You're 70% occupied. All these go up, but what remains the same? How much your debt's going to be. The main reason investors have lost their properties and have gone into foreclosure, whether it was in the Resolution Trust Corporation days in the early 80s, early to mid 80s, whether it was in 2006 through 2009 if they owned apartments. By the way, apartments actually still did pretty good during that time, by the way. But the main reason anybody loses their property to foreclosure is what? They can't make the debt service payments. Why can't they make the debt payments? Because they're too high. They're too high. And in addition to this, when you are an investor and you're borrowing money, you have to sign a personal guarantee for the most part. Okay? What's personal guarantee? It basically says, okay, in the event we have to foreclose, we foreclose, we take the property back. If you owe $600,000, we foreclose, but we can only sell the property for $400,000. This $200,000 difference, guess who we're coming after for that? You. You is who they're coming after. Okay? Most properties are financed like this with PGs, and it can be pretty scary. Okay? But that's how properties go into foreclosure. The debt service is too high. When times are great, things are good, but if things, if the graph kind of goes like this for some reason, all of a sudden those debt service payments get too high. You look at going into foreclosure, because they're too high, all of a sudden now you got personal guarantees, so you're not only out your investment, that's gone, your investment's gone, now you could actually have to pony up more because of this personal guarantee. Not a fun situation. That is risk. Now, the interesting thing is a lot of people do this, especially, like I said, a lot of some of the gurus out there. This is how they finance their deals. And again, that's their methodology. I'm not picking on them. I'm just saying it's what I would not do. Why? Well, why would I not do that? Because of risk. Okay? Not only me personally, but my partners, right? I mean, my partners have skin in the game too. Some of them millions of dollars of skin in the game. So why would I want to increase their risk? That's stupid. I would rather have a lower return with a lot lower risk than a higher return with a hell of a lot more risk. Right? And there's a fine line here that all of us have, right? There's a fine line here. Some of us are that line moves between risk and return. Okay? But I'm telling you, if appreciation is going to be the same no matter how much you put down, right? If cash flow is going to be the same before you make your loan payments, no matter how much you put down, why would you not go less with your risk versus more? How do you do that? Very simple. And this is what we do with every single one of our projects. I've been criticized for this. I still get criticized for this from people, but it's the way we do it, and it's the way we're going to continue to do it because of this right here. So most investors will put 20 to 25% down. Then they'll sign personal guarantees. Okay. And even if they oversee a partnership, where the partners don't have to sign personal guarantees, typically they will have to, or if they don't, they'll have to agree to what's called carve-outs, which basically means, look, we're going to loan you 75 to 80% of the value, and you don't have to sign a personal guarantee, but here's like 25, here's a bullet points of 25 things if we find out later on, you have to now have a personal guarantee in place. It pretty much, in effect, zings you with a personal guarantee. Okay, so for example, like a real, an obvious one is like fraud. So when you report to us how the property's doing, and if you lie to us, all of a sudden we find that out, boom, personal guarantee, right? So they've got carve-outs. And the other thing that they want is continuous reporting. And this is the biggest pain in the ass there is. Continuous reporting. The banks, the lenders, when they lend like this, from investors and from partners, they want tax returns. They want financial statements. They want property operation statements, okay? But they want that all the time. All the time. So you're a partner of mine, you own some real estate with me. Do you really want some bank in Iowa calling you saying, yeah, it's about time to get your personal financial statement and your tax returns into us so we can review them and check them out? Really? Do you really want to be doing that? Well, if you get involved in something like this, you're going to be doing that. Why in the hell would you want to do that? Right? No way you'd want to do that. I mean, I don't think you would. So, how do we mitigate this? How do we get rid of personal guarantees, providing personal information about your finances, your tax returns, your financials? How do we get around that? Simple. Every property we buy, we will put 40 to 50% down payment down on it. Okay? 40 to 50% down. So, here are the reasons why we do this. And it all has to do with mitigating this right here. Number one, NPG. When you put this much down, no personal guarantees required. The banks and the lenders are going to say, hey, if you're putting this much money down, man, we don't need a personal guarantee. I mean, we've already got a lot of equity in this deal as it is right now. We don't need a personal guarantee. Thank you, but no. Perfect. So I don't have to sign any personal guarantees. I don't have to provide financial statements, tax returns, all that kind of stuff year after year. My partners don't have to do that year after year because we have no personal guarantees. Magic. Magic. A huge amount of risk has just been unloaded from us, right? Market downswings. We're protected, right? Well, what do you mean we're protected? Well, think of it this way. Let's say we've got $1 million property. We get an $800,000 loan on it. We have $200,000 of equity. Would you agree in that little scenario there? $1 million, $800,000 loan, $200,000 of equity, right? Well, let's say the market goes to shit for some reason for a year or two. Now all of a sudden this $1 million property is a $875,000 property. Okay? Now how much equity do I have? I got $75,000. Roughly. I mean, maybe this goes down a little bit, the balance, but now my equity goes from 200 to 75. And oh my God, what if the market value goes under $800,000? Then I've got negative equity. I've seen it happen. Okay, I've seen people owe more on the properties than what they're worth, right? Negative equity. And the main reason they owe more is because what? They borrowed too damn much. But, same scenario, $1 million property, market goes to shit. Let's say it's $800,000 is the value now, right? But our equity, but we put $500,000 out, so we have $500,000 loan because we put 40 to 50% down. Now we still have $300,000 of equity. Have we lost money? Yeah, right at this point in time, but we still got money. We still got it. In the other scenario, you didn't have it. We still got it. And now we can weather any storm for a long period of time until this does what? Goes back up. Right? Why? Because our loan payments are less. Not rocket science. Our loan payments are less. So what does this give us? More cash flow, right? It doesn't necessarily give us a higher return, but it gives us more cash flow. So now we've got more cash flow to distribute, maybe make some improvements, maybe add on to some of the properties, maybe make some not necessary improvements, maybe voluntary improvements. Maybe we want to test doing some work in some units. Maybe we can get more rent that way. There's a whole, but see, more cash flow now provides you so many more avenues and so many more things that you can do. Okay, maybe just make distributions with it. That's nice. But now we can do more. But when you have less cash flow, what happens? Nothing happens. Nothing. So, this is the game that I play. More down, less risk to our partners, our investors, and myself. No personal guarantees. Survive any kind of market downswings. And nobody wants to talk about the market downswings. Most people want to say how great things are going to be for next year, 5 years, 10 years. It's just going to take off. And by the way, I think it is. I think it's going to. But if in case it doesn't, in case I'm wrong, this is what I want, because it mitigates that. Because if I'm wrong and I've got 80% or more borrowed, holy crap. I'm in trouble and my partners are in trouble. Right? If it doesn't work out like we think it is. Right? Survive those market downswings. Loan payments are less, so it provides us more cash flow and cushions our equity in worst case scenarios, so we still have something. We still have something. Okay? And so people don't want to talk about what happens when the shit hits the fan. They don't. They want to continue to talk about when things go right, when things go great, because they don't want to talk about this. A lot of times you hear, there's no risk in buying this apartment property. I mean, this is a gold mine. I mean, there's no risk in buying it. I mean, but you have to address this. And to avoid 80% of your potential risk, sure, it's important to have good location, good condition, good tenant mix, good mechanic, I mean, et cetera, that's all good. But you want to mitigate 80% of it? Financing. And not a lot of people like to hear what I'm saying. I know they don't, but you got to put more down. You have to. It mitigates this in a huge way. You still profit, you still make really good money. If things go great, you do fine. You do great. But if things don't go well, in this scenario, you're more than likely still going to be fine. But in that other scenario where we're borrowing that much, I can tell you, you're not going to be fine. Okay? So, again, this is something I get criticized on. People like to make fun of me sometimes with this and my outlook on it and how we approach it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to doing everything you can to mitigate everything that's coming at you. You can never cover all the bases all the time. But when you can do this one simple thing, and you can mitigate 80% of any possible risk, my friend, you really got to work on doing that, okay? Hey, I hope that this week's podcast, video podcast, has been instructional for you. If you have any questions or comments on what I've talked about, I'd love to hear from you. Even you haters out there that don't agree with me, I'd love to hear from you and see what you've got to say about this, all right? So, have a great day, have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you soon. All right, take care. We'll see you. Bye-bye.